ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकर्ता मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. So today we are going to start a new chapter that is traditionally known as Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, or the three modes of material nature. Now, as we were discussing while studying the last section of the previous chapter, we discussed that there is a connection between these two chapters. Otherwise, why Bhagavan is continue speaking without being asked by Arjuna? So we can understand the importance and continuity of the topic. See, as we discussed that the 22nd verse 22nd, 22 of the last chapter, that is 13th chapter, when it is said, Bhagavan said that Purushaha prakritistho hi bhunkte prakritijan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasat yoni janmasu. So the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life. How? Enjoying the three modes of nature. Bhunkte prakriti janguna. So this is due to his association with the material nature, guna sangosya. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Sat asat yoni janmasu. So we see the first section of this chapter states about the liberation and bondage of Jivatma. And inevitably, these three gunas come in picture because they are the reasons for this bondage. How? That will be discussed in this chapter. So the first two verses, they are actually the introduction, we can say. So if we talk about an outline of this chapter, we can see the first 4 verses that talks about the liberation and bondage of Jivatma, as well as the relationship of this Jivatma and the universal parents and children and their swarupa, that is discussed in these 4 verses in the beginning. And then in the next section 5 to 9, it is stated that how these gunas bind the Jivatma in material bondage. And then in the next 4 verses 10 to 13, to identify the domination or the prevalence of different gunas. And in the 4th section, that is 14 to 18, we will see how Bhagavan will explain that how the gunas affect the action as well as the death of the jivas, and how the jivas act by the influence of these gunas. All these things will be discussed. And in the last section, 19 to 27, we will know about the way to liberation from the effect of these gunas. So all these things will be discussed very elaborately. Now see, in the beginning, as we see in the very first verse, Bhagavan says, something without being asked by Arjuna. So we can easily understand it is a continuation and the importance of this topic, as Bhagavan is spontaneously talking this. So Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajñatva Munayah Sarve Param Siddhimito Gataha. Synonyms. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Param, transcendental, Bhuyaha, again, Pravakshyami, I shall speak, Jnananam, of all knowledge, Jnanam, knowledge, Uttamam, the supreme, Yat, which, Jnatva, knowing, Munayaha, the sages, Sarve, all, Param, transcendental, Siddhim, perfection, Itaha, from this world, Gataha, attained. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection." Now see why Bhagavan is saying, "I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge." Again, see, from the beginning of 7th chapter, we know that Bhagavan started describing about this Param Jnana, after knowing which everything will be known to Arjuna. So, if it is a continuation of that, then definitely nothing new is going to come. And that is why Bhagavan is saying, Bhuyaha. Again, I will tell you. So, if it is again, then what is the need for stating this again? Because Bhagavan, previously in the previous chapters, he stated all this, but now he is going to elaborate this, specifically describing certain things which is needed to be understood. Now, in the previous chapters, where he mentioned about this, we will just go through the verses. First, we see this about this Prakriti and these gunas. Bhagavan told this as we just discussed in 13.22. Purushaha prakritistho hi bhunte prakriti chan guna. So, there he just said this, but what are the gunas and how they act, how their nature is, that is not discussed. So, just said that due to this guna sangha, we take birth again and again in different species of life, sat, asat, yoni, janmasu. So, no detailed description is given here. But we see in different sections of Bhagavad Gita, in 3rd chapter and 4th chapter, Bhagavan also mentioned about these gunas, but didn't discuss anything. He told in 3.27 that Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimodhatma karta ahamiti manyate. So it is the gunas actually who are working, but we who are puffed up by the false ego think that it is me, I am the doer, whereas in reality it is not so. Then the people who understand that I am not the karta or the doer, they are the tattvavit. And it is said in the very next verse, that is 3.28. 3.28. There it is said as Tattvavittu Mahabahu Gunakarma Vibhagayaho. So, who is aware of the sections or the differences between different gunas and their karma, they are tattvavid. They know the tattvas. And what else do they know? They also know that guna guneshu vartanta. So it means gunas act or react mutually. And then again in 4.13, Bhagavan says that Chaturvarnam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashah. So, 4 divisions, varnas in human society, that is created by me. But the basis is gunakarma vibhagashah, according to the 3 modes of material nature and the work associated with them, guna and karma. He has stated in many places, but now he is elaborating this, and that is why he is telling bhuyaha, that I will again discuss you. Again. So, and this particular word in the next verse is very, very important. That is, mama sadharmyam agataha. Sadharmyam agataha. That is my same nature having attained. My same nature. And one more thing that Bhagavan says in the first verse, that is, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. So, supreme perfection is attainable, and Bhagavan is repeatedly saying, elaborately saying in the last few chapters. We studied about all the details of Bhakti Yoga, how he said all these things, how to achieve that state. He talked about his nature and the nature of Jivatma and everything, and how to attain that perfection, specifically in 9th chapter, 10th chapter, the motivation, the factor behind the urge of attaining this perfection, the level of perfection, all these things. But here we see Bhagavan says that yes, all the sages, they have attained the supreme perfection. That is also another important point in this verse. And in the next verse, that is verse number 2, we first chant it and then discuss. Idam jnanamupashritya mama sadharmyamagataha sargepi nopajayante pralayena vyathanticha. Synonyms. Idam, this. Jnanam, knowledge. Upashritya, taking shelter of. Mama, my. Sadharmyam, same nature. Agataha, having attained. Sargepi, even in the creation. Na, never. Upajayante, are born. Pralaye, in the annihilation. Na, nor. Vyathanti, are disturbed. Cha, also. Translation. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. This is actually very interesting. Very, very interesting. This mama sadharmya magataha. So, when a sadhaka progresses in his spiritual life, then how far he can go, or what perfectional stage he can attain. That is again very beautifully explained here. Though he had already mentioned different places, as we see, he talked about Brahmi Sthiti in chapter 2. Brahma Bhutaya Kalpate. So Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Nirvanam Rachati. Brahma Nirvanam. Sthita Prajna. Yoga Samsiddhim. Paramam Sthanam Upaiti. Param Sthanam Upaiti Divyam. So all these things he mentioned. He talked about all this in different places in the previous chapters, in different bhava. As in the 4th chapter, he says that by jnana, by knowledge, tapasya, austerity. So by knowledge and austerity, one is purified, and then he attained my bhava, mad bhavam agataha. Now, this mad bhava is also clear. It's not that it is very fancy in its meaning, but still something is hidden in this particular word also. Whereas in this particular verse, mama sadharmya magataha, this is much more clear in meaning. So it means one gets liberation from the bondage of this body concept, and ultimately they get the perfectional stage. And this parama state, that is a parama avastha, that swarupa is very effulgent in this particular verse. We see Jiva, after reaching the perfectional stages, can never be God. Can never be God. But he can get the qualities of God. That is what we can say Ishvara Tulya. So, in terms of the qualities, he can attain God-like nature. But in terms of guna, in terms of bhava, in terms of karma, in terms of dharma, though the jiva can attain the same qualities, but there will always be a difference. Swadharma. So, to limit this concept of Swadharma, the Vedanta Sutra says Jagat Vyapara Varjam. Jagat Vyapara Varjam, that is, in this world, Srishti, Sthiti and Pralaya, that is creation, maintenance and dissolution. This can, the Shakti, the energy that is needed to perform these actions can never be attained by the Jiva. It is impossible to attain by the Jivas. But at the same time, Bhagavan is saying, see the second line, Sargepi nopajayante. Sarge api na upajayante, pralaye na vyathantite. So, he is not born again at the time of creation, and he is not disturbed at the time of annihilation. So, that means he transcends this cycle of birth and death. He does not take birth at the time of creation and now vyathanti at the time of pralaya. That is, he is not dissolved at the time of dissolution. So it means that there will be some similarities between God and the jiva in this stage. But definitely, he cannot be God at the same time. So this bheda, abheda swarupa, or the establishment of this bheda and abheda swarupa simultaneously is the primary teaching and the ultimate teaching of Gita. So this is very beautiful, and that is why this particular word and this particular verse is to be understood in this way. So mama swadharmamagata. So this bheda abheda at the same time, that is the oneness in difference, is the ultimate teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So we see in these two verses, Bhagavan tells about or gives an introduction of this chapter, and he establishes the continuation of the topic which started earlier in the scripture. And in the next two verses, these are also very beautiful, where Bhagavan tells about the universal parents and the children and their swarupa. Mama yonirmahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhavah sarvabhutanam tato bhavati bharata. Mama, my, yonihi, source of birth, maha, the total material existence, Brahma, supreme, tasmin, in that, garbham, pregnancy, dadhami, create, aham, I, sambhavaha, the possibility, sarvabhutanam, of all living entities, tataha, thereafter, bhavati, becomes, Bharata, O son of Bharata. Translation. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata. Okay. So we see Bhagavan is saying that the source of birth of the jivas he says that Mahat Tattva, Prakriti, Mahat Brahma, it is Mahat Tattva, Prakriti, that is the place of impregnation of the jivas. And who is impregnating the nature? That is God Himself, He Himself, Bhagavan Himself. So we see, I will just read a portion from the purport given by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is an explanation of the word. Everything that takes place is due to the combination of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, the body and the spirit soul, as we studied in the previous chapter, 13th. This combination of material nature and the living entity is made possible by the Supreme God Himself. The Mahatattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation. So Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma, this Mahatattva, is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation and the total substance of the material cause, in which there are three modes of nature. Is sometimes called Brahman. So this Mahatattva and this total material substance, which is responsible for the total cosmic manifestation, is sometimes called as Brahman also. The Supreme Personality impregnates the total substance, and thus innumerable universes become possible. This total material substance, the Mahatattva, is described as Brahman in the Vedic literature in Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.19. Tasmat etad Brahma nama rupam annam cha jayate. The Supreme Person impregnates that Brahman with the seeds of the living entities. The 24 elements, beginning from earth, water, fire, and air, are all material energy, and they constitute what is called Mahat Brahma, or the great Brahman, the material nature, as explained in the 7th chapter. Beyond this, there is another superior nature, the living entity, as we discussed in 7.4 and 5. Into material nature, the superior nature is mixed by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereafter all living entities are born of this material nature. The scorpion lays its eggs in piles of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice, but the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. It is a beautiful example given here. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, the material nature is not the cause of the birth of living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to come out as products of material nature. Thus, every living entity, according to his past activities, has a different body created by the material nature, so that the entity can enjoy or suffer according to his past deeds. The Lord is the cause of all the manifestations of living entities in this material world. So as the material things are manifesting from this material world, one may think that all these things are coming from the matter only. But actually, it is the Lord who is impregnating the Prakriti and who is giving the seeds, and from the seeds only, after the interaction, the existence we can see, what is existing that we can see. So that is why this beautiful example of scorpion, there are laying eggs in the piles of rice, and thousands of scorpions, the baby scorpions that's coming out from the piles of rice, as if they're coming from the piles of rice, but actually the cause behind their origination is the seeds laid by the mother scorpion. So that is why the father of all this creation, that is the God himself, he is the giver of the seed. That will be again explained in the, or continued in the next verse, that is verse number 4. That also we will chant. Sarvayonishu Kaunteya Murtayah Sambhavanti Yaha Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Pradah Pita. Sarvayonishu, in all species of life. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Murtayaha, forms. Sambhavanti, they appear. Yaha, which. Tasam, of all of them. Brahma, the supreme. Mahadyonihi, source of birth in the material substance. Aham, I. Bija Pradaha, the seed giving. Pita, father. Translation. That all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So they are not coming on their own or from the material nature itself. The material nature is the garbha, that is a womb of the mother, whereas the father, who is the seed giver, is the Lord himself. So in this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even on the highest, where Brahma is situated. Wherever there are living entities within the earth, there are living entities even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, that is material nature, and Krishna's seed-giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. So, for the past deeds of the living entities, they become bound. So now they have to take birth in different species of life, and they will come from the mother, that is the material nature, and the seeds are given by the Lord himself to the Prakriti. So Bija Pradah Pita is the Lord, and the Prakriti, Mahad Brahma, Tasmin Garbha, the Garbha of Mahad Brahma is the Garbha of the entire creation. So we see in these two verses, we came to know about this from these two verses, this third and fourth, about the universal parents and the children, that is the Jivatma, and their Swarupa. Swarupa. Now, we see in the ninth chapter, if we can remember, There also Bhagavan said that Pita Hamasya Jagato Mata Dhata Pita Mahaha. So he told that he is a father, he is a mother, he is a grandfather, everything. But to particularly describing or revealing or showing by his fingers that this is a Mata and this is a Pita, see, this is your mother and I am the father, and the entire process of Garbhadhana. So all these things, this is the Lord is explaining for the very first time in this scripture. So we see in the material world, the Garbhadhana happens by the mutual interaction of the Jada Indriyas, whereas the Lord, as He is transcendental, the process of Garbhadhana is also transcendental. It happens through His glance to the Prakriti or the Sankalpa. So either Ikshana, we can say either Ikshana, that is glance, or Sankalpa. That is His wish only. That is enough for this Garbhadhana. And in the last chapter, that is the 18th chapter, there also Bhagavan says that in this entire cosmos, there is no such thing who can get rid of the hands of this Prakriti Mata, and hands of this, the mother, that is the material nature. So these gunas, see, these three gunas, there are three gunas as we discussed various times, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Actually the Jiva, that is the Santana, that is the child, he receives the gunas from the mother, that is the Prakriti. And the Chaitanya, that is consciousness, Anu Chaitanya we are, he is Vibhu, we are Anu. So this Chaitanya or the consciousness we receive from our Father, that is the Lord Himself. So we and the entire universe on the whole. So Bhagavan, He is the seed giver Father, and we receive the Chaitanya from Him, whereas our mother, that is the Prakriti, the material nature, we receive the quality of gunas, that is the modes of material nature, that we receive from our mother, that is Prakriti. And that is why possible, at least apparently, to get rid of this material and this gunas of this material nature. Okay, so in the next class, we will move on to the next section. वैष्णवतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Thanks for joining.